guys? This is Phil the MMA Dude back with the 5th episode of the Split Decision podcast here with my brilliant co-host, the Fight Geek, and we have a ton to discuss today. Fight Geek, what's up? How you doing today, man?
Doing good, man. Glad to be here. Lots to catch up on.
So much. All right, so I'm going to quickly break it down for everyone. We've got a quick UFC 229 post-event recap. Then we're going to go into the big weekend that Bellator had with 207 and 208 recaps. Then we're going to very quickly touch on the Volkan versus Smith upcoming UFC fight night. Eddie Alvarez going to 1. The UFC 230 shocking surprise headliner of DC versus Lewis. And then finally we're going to go to listener questions. So a lot to tackle today. But let me start with this question for you, Fight Geek. UFC 229 obviously had some post-event activities that Conor and Khabib are both facing punishment for. And here's my question to you. Who do you predict, will be the two contenders fighting for the lightweight title next? The next lightweight title fight, who's it going to be between? Because remember, there's a chance that Khabib is going to get stripped if he gets a year or more suspension. So he may not be in this.
Hitting the ground running, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Lots to cover in that question. First and foremost, I believe that they released some information on the suspension, right? It was only like 10 days. I think it was minimal punishment that they are facing. I don't think this is going to be something that is going to be lengthy. I don't know. Do you know different?
Yeah, so it's my understanding that 10-day suspension is just up until they've got a hearing on the 24th. There's a big hearing on the 24th where I believe it's all symbolic. You know, it's similar to USADA. They're going to get an indefinite suspension, but then they're going to go to the Nevada State Athletic Commission, and Brendan Schaub is convinced that Conor is going to get a 6-month suspension and Khabib will get a year. Now, that is totally unverified with zero evidence except Brendan Schaub's word that he claims he heard from insiders, but that is the rumor, and that is a total rumor.
I don't see that happening.
You don't?
I don't see a year-long suspension. I could see him getting a lengthy suspension and then appealing it and then having it be reduced to something like 8 months, and then us seeing him in like second quarter of next year. And in that case, I would not think that Khabib is going to be stripped. I think I heard some rumblings where Dana said that he was not going to strip Khabib also, and I could be wrong there. But I think with what it's taken for us to get clarity in the 155-pound division and the fact that Khabib proved it in the cage, and competition-wise, there's no question any longer as to who's the champion, unless you're a Tony Ferguson fan. But between Conor and Khabib, that was settled. And then the drama came after the fight. So I don't think he's going to be stripped for that. He is going to be facing probably some financial obligations based on his actions. But other than that, I do see him fighting again early next year, maybe mid next year. And if I'm drawing straws on his opponent, I'm going to say Khabib versus Dustin Poirier will be the next lightweight title fight.
Wow. Okay. That's very interesting for a bunch of reasons. All right. So I am.
Got guard there.
Yeah, you definitely did. I'm shocked. Let me ask you this. First of all, I totally agree with you that if he just gets 8 months, he will not get stripped. You're right that Dana said he would not strip him, but this isn't entirely up to Dana. I believe that if the Nevada State Athletic Commission gives him a lengthier suspension, such as a year, Dana insinuated that he would strip him of the belt. But moving on to your pick of Khabib versus Poirier, I find that fascinating because I thought you were going to either say Khabib McGregor 2. That's obviously the money fight for the UFC. No. Hey, I agree.
No.
I agree. I don't want to see it either.
I need that rivalry to breathe for a while, and then what I would like, not to segue, but I'd like to see Conor McGregor come back and have some success again. Let's build. It sounds crazy to say this, but I almost feel like at this point we need to build Conor McGregor back up, or we might lose him, the elite version of him forever.
Yep. Yep.
I think the UFC is milking him as a cash cow with no regards to, his actual competitive career. So he's going to have to pick these next few fights wisely. And I don't see why those fights wouldn't look something like Nate Diaz and Justin Gaethje. Two extremely winnable fights for him that are extremely entertaining. He wins two fights like that, and then a Khabib versus Conor McGregor potential rematch makes some sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was
absolutely. Hold on. Let me just really quickly ask you this. Going back to your Khabib-Poirier prediction is the next lightweight title fight. How do you see Dustin skipping the line over Tony? Because Khabib has said, and I know his uncle said a comment that he's definitely fighting Tony next. That was now people have refuted that. Dana refuted that. Ali refuted that. But it looks like it's Tony or Conor, no?
It does look like that at surface level. But if Khabib, hypothetically, is out for 8 months, I don't believe Tony Ferguson is the type of fighter that's going to wait. I believe he's going to take another fight. And I also believe that Dustin Poirier is the type of fighter that's going to take another fight. He's supposed to be out for 2 months. So his timetable to come back would probably be within 4 to 6 months, which would set up potentially a fight between Dustin Poirier and Tony Ferguson as either an interim title belt or a true number one contendership. And I have a feeling that Dustin Poirier could possibly take that fight, essentially robbing Tony of his matchup with Khabib, at least for now, and setting up a fight with Dustin Poirier. But again, that's all hypothetical, and that's just your crazy question you asked. So that's kind of where my mind takes it.
Yeah, fascinating. I think that it's going to be my personal guess is that it's going to be Khabib Conor 2, as much as we both don't want it. I know, but this is the WME
I don't think
era.
so though, because I think Khabib, and I've been on Twitter quite a bit this week saying this and hearing this from others, is Khabib is interested in a legacy fight at this point.
It doesn't matter,
though. The money fight does not interest him. It
interests WME. It interests UFC, and it interests Dana, and Dana doesn't give a shit what Khabib wants. That's what I'm saying.
But if Khabib does not sign the contract to fight, it does not matter what they want.
Right. I mean, I think it's a very
He holds
situation.
all the leverage with his signature.
It's going to be a very interesting situation because, it's a great point you just brought up. For the first time I think that I can remember, the UFC champ seems totally hostile to the big money fight, which you don't really see a lot of, right? People don't usually turn that down.
But that is the ultimate power play for Khabib. What he's done now is he's proved his point competitively with Conor, and I can see him honestly never giving Conor the chance to remedy that. I just don't see that being a possibility, much the same way that Conor will never give Aldo a chance to remedy that blemish. It's how it works in this game. When you get a trophy head like that, you just move on and keep it on the wall.
Well, we're going to see what happens. The truth is, I hope you're right. As a Conor fan myself, I hope you're right and that they don't make Conor Khabib 2 next. I don't think Conor's ready for that rematch.
Conor versus Diaz 3, that has to be next in my opinion. That fight can sell regardless. Conor's coming off basically 2 losses in a row if you count the Floyd fight. So
yeah, you cannot count a circus boxing match.
You can't count it, but he lost whatever that circus was. They had to stop it.
I mean, but you can't say he's coming off of two losses in MMA. I mean, that's just crazy.
Well, that Khabib fight probably felt like 2 losses.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to go on record as saying this purely as a prediction. I'm telling you, it's going to be Khabib Conor 2 next. I think that Khabib doesn't have all the say. I think Dana's going to say, fuck you. Conor brings in 2 million plus. Because here's the thing. Khabib does not have the drawing power anywhere near Conor.
But who's to say he doesn't?
Well, I'm just saying. I'm here saying Khabib doesn't have the power.
But if they made the Tony versus Khabib fight, do you think that fight does 1.5 million now?
Do I think Khabib-Tony does 1.5 million? No fucking way. 0 chance.
Well, let's just hear me out. Conor versus Khabib did 2.4.
Yep.
That's the largest MMA card ever. Who was the co-headliner on that card? Who got a huge rub? The star of my fight party that night was El Kukui. So that 2.4 million
sure.
fans that watched that fight, you know who they fell in love with that night? They fell in love with Derek Lewis, and they fell in love with Tony Ferguson. Both of those guys got a huge rub from that. And I think that Tony Ferguson and Khabib could do a million plus easy and potentially push 1.5. I don't know. Maybe I'm just knee-jerk reaction after the great numbers we saw from 229.
Yeah, I will be if Tony Khabib did 1.3, I'll go on record right now. I will shave my head. I will dye my hair pink for 1 week, and I will do it. I don't know if the fight will ever come to pass, but oh my gosh, would I be shocked if it does that? Because the truth is, and I want to move on to Bellator. We'll move on in 1 second.
Yeah.
But I do think that I don't think that Conor deserves the rematch. Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely not.
I'm not saying he deserves it. I'm not saying that for 1 second. I'm saying money talks. Especially in the WME era when they've got this $4 billion to pay back, they are looking at the money fights, and the money fight not even close is Khabib Conor 2. Definitely not Khabib Ferguson.
I guess we'll see, man.
We'll see. Okay, moving on to Bellator 207 and 208 recaps. So first of all, Matt Mitrione took on Ryan Bader in the first heavyweight semifinal. I will be honest, I actually did not see that fight live. I saw it the next morning. Thought it was a pretty boring but impressive victory from Bader. What did you take away from the fight?
It was Bader at his best, more or less. I was very surprised with the way he was able to control Mitrione, being a stronger man, or I guess you can't say he's the stronger man. He's the larger man, and with his football history and things like that, I wasn't expecting him to be physically dominated like that. But I think you saw Bader do what he does best, which is wrestle and control with his top game. And it was a very impressive performance. It moves him on to the next round, which is the title fight for the heavyweight division. And I firmly believe that Bader's turned into a very solid addition for Bellator, and probably is hitting his prime right now. So this is probably the best version of him we've seen thus far. And good fight, good performance for him. Mitrione, not so much.
Not so much, and I was shocked by that. I may or may not have lost a ton of money on that fight, but we don't need to talk about that. That was disappointing. Thanks a lot, Matt, for nothing. But the truth is, Ryan was extremely impressive. He's underrated. He looked great out there, and I think he's got a great chance in the final. But moving on to the second semifinal, Fedor versus Chael. That fight I did sit down and watch live.
Awesome.
I thought it was awesome too. Awesome.
Oh my goodness.
Right? It was so exciting.
Fedor looked fast twitch. He was rolling around and switching positions, and I mean, Fedor looked really good to me. I know it was against Chael Sonnen, who's obviously not an elite fighter at this point in his career, but
he's not. But he's not bad. He's not that.
No,
bad.
he's pretty good. But you know what? He makes a lot of technical mistakes. I mean, let's put
yeah.
That
Well,
and that,
are you referring to the specific moment, that horrendous jiu-jitsu when he literally had Fedor's. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. He has Fedor's back, totally dominant, and he did this. He was going for some submission, and
it was strange. Yeah.
I literally said, "What the hell are you doing?" I screamed that at the TV.
Yeah, it was strange, but I'm such a Fedor mark that I'm always happy to see him perform well, and anytime he performs that well, and then his last fight with Mir, he looked good too. So I mean, this is great for Bellator. It's great for us as Fedor fans because it's not kind of the sad story some of us were expecting after you saw the Mitrione fight and you knew he had a couple more fights on his deal, and we were kind of wondering where Fedor could go from that point. And what he's done since then, beating Mir, a former champion, and now Sonnen, who obviously is undersized but has some name value, and he beat him up. He hit him hard. He threw him around. He reversed a couple positions, and that was a pretty dominant performance. So I liked it, and I definitely think Bader versus Fedor is an interesting matchup that obviously favors Bader big time at this point in their careers because he's more in his physical prime and kind of hitting his stride. But let me throw this out there. Bader has lost to an aging Tito Ortiz, and Bader has also been caught by a Glover Teixeira. Two types of losses that Fedor could catch him with, if you understand what I'm trying to say. So there are ways for Fedor to win that fight, but I would lean Fedor if this Fedor. Sorry,
no, I know it sounds so weird, here, doesn't it? I was actually looking at that today. It's like Fedor versus Bader. I mean, it's Bader, of course. It's kind of like an awkward fight title.
Right. So I would say that Fedor has a couple of chances to win that, even though it favors Bader. So interesting stuff. Bellator improving drastically. I've really enjoyed the 208 card in particular. Czech Congo, we'll shout him out. Looked better than we've seen him in a long time. I know Tim Johnson isn't the greatest competition in the world, but he dealt with him quickly, put him away, and moved on. He's on a 7-fight win streak, and I was doing some research, and Czech Congo, I think he's like 11-1 in Bellator or something.
I tweeted, I was like, he is so underrated right now. He's like, no one talks about him.
How's he not in that tournament?
I don't know why he wasn't in the tournament. I have no idea why not. Why not?
I didn't realize he'd been gone that long. He's actually been a very solid signing for Bellator competitively. He's not a big draw, but he's a guy who is still competitive.
Right. I have I honestly would love to hear why he wasn't in the heavyweight tournament. I understand that obviously, his win streak wasn't quite as long as it is now, but no offense to Mo.
I know that he trains with Rampage and they share the same agent, Tiki, so perhaps they didn't want to square off with each other. I don't know.
Have him fight King Mo on the other side. Or I don't. Right. But okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyways, okay, moving on. Got a lot to discuss today. Eddie Alvarez went to 1. And I was shocked.
Eddie getting paid.
He's getting paid, man. So my question to you, Fight Geek, I'll let you start this one off, is this a sign that one is making a play for the North American and just in general the Western market?
I'm going to say this is more a play that UFC does not value roster depth more so than it is ONE FC trying to expand west. I think ONE FC has been trying to add talent as it's come available. I think they've been outbid by Bellator and PFL and some stuff like that, so they haven't necessarily locked down a lot of the Western talent. But they do have some. Brandon Vera is their heavyweight champion. And with them adding Eddie Alvarez, it's going to add a lot of credibility to that to the 155-pound division over there and their league. If he can get a belt, that elevates your league. Eddie Alvarez is a truly elite mixed martial artist. He has the resume to back it up, and even though he is a little bit advanced in age, I mean, this is a guy that, beat Justin Gaethje within the last calendar year, I believe. So he brings value to your organization for sure. And at this point, I think it's more of an indictment on the UFC than it is, anything else, because fighters are seeing and experiencing in Bellator. I hear it all the time, almost verbatim out of every single fighter's mouth, that they're treated better. They're treated differently. They're able, to have a little more say in their career and things like this. And as the world evolves, the MMA world evolves, these fighters are going to realize that cash is cash. It don't matter where you're fighting. What matters is, if you're feeling respected and if you're feeling like you are valued. And I think that Eddie Alvarez searched around for that, and he found it over in Asia, so more power to him.
I completely agree, and a few of the major MMA outlets touched on this when the deal first came out earlier in the week, but I just wanted to sort of echo what a lot of the sentiment was, because I'm a big Eddie Alvarez fan, and my big opinion that seems to be shared by a decent amount of people is that this was a great thing for him. You clearly believe that too. You're in the same camp. And this isn't a Ben Askren move, is what I really wanted to clarify. Because when Ben went to Asia, he was in his prime, and it was almost, I think it was almost viewed a little bit as a cowardly move, frankly. Eddie's different. Eddie got the UFC belt. Eddie got the Bellator belt. Eddie got
Right.
I mean, he's been champ.
I disagree a little bit there. I don't think that there's anything that Ben Askren is afraid of. I just feel like there was a personality conflict with Dana White, and politics kept him out of the UFC. He was able to make more money with less drama in Asia, and he took that opportunity. Also, I think that people who aren't in the know don't realize that the people who own and run ONE FC are very successful people. They're very smart.
Oh, no
people.
doubt about it.
They're running a tight ship over there, and it appeals to a lot of people, especially when you feel like you've been slighted a little bit or overlooked. So I think they're going to be able to capitalize in that way, if you know what I'm getting at.
Oh, absolutely. I was just saying, I mean, you do have to admit there's a slight difference between what Eddie's accomplished and what Ben Askren's accomplished. Is that fair?
Yes, Eddie Alvarez has arguably the greatest 155-pound resume of any fighter ever.
I agree with you. I agree. So I think this is
arguably.
Yeah, I think this is a great move for Eddie. Get paid, especially now. You had nothing left to prove in Bellator, the UFC.
And one side note sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead. I was done.
The fact that he has so many belts from so many different organizations, I think that's something that will be a part of his legacy. So the fact that he has a chance to go to ONE FC and get yet another belt,
another one,
add to the Bellator belt, to the UFC belt. I think he has a couple other belts too. I can't remember off the top of my head, but for the Underground King to be the champion of multiple organizations, I think that'll really play well for his legacy.
Yep, completely agree. Okay, so moving on. Volkan versus Smith. Now, we're not going to break down the whole card at all. I just wanted to talk about this matchup. Obviously there's no UFC this weekend, nor is there any Bellator. But looking forward to October 27th, Volkan versus Smith. I don't know about you. I am so excited for this fight. I think I've mentioned before to you, Fight Geek offline, that I've been following Anthony Smith for a long time, since well before he moved to light heavyweight, when he was almost known as the Derek Lewis of middleweight. Now, obviously worse ranked, but he would come back from 2 rounds down and knock people out all the time. So I'm a huge fan of his. How do you see the Volkan versus Smith fight, playing out?
Well, 2 very explosive guys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big Lionheart fan too, man. I've been watching him fight for a long time. He was one of those guys. 10 years ago, you would see here and there, and he would be kind of obscure, but you could always tell that he had some good ability, but was always working on things.
Mm-hmm.
And then about 2 years ago, I think it was, in the UFC, he just made his return and just came out of nowheres. And you've really started to see the incremental growths in his game. He physically matured, as you can see. Again, once guys start getting to their 30s, their bodies change. I think he developed a little more power than he used to have also.
Yep.
For all these reasons, I'm going to pick Anthony Smith over Volkan. When I go back and look at Volkan, I'm just really not sold on him. He has had some good, solid, quick knockouts. Exciting fighter, but I just don't know if he's seasoned enough to deal with someone like Anthony Smith. Also, I think the cardio could be an issue for both guys. So I see this being a quick fight. I really do. I see both of these guys as knockout artists who tend to slow down.
I'm shocked you picked Lionheart. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to take Lionheart by first round knockout.
Wow.
Yeah, I think he's on the fast track to being in a title fight if he wins that. I mean, that would be 3 straight. I know he's kind of beat up on some older guys, but even before that, he had some very solid showings, and I feel like with him kind of finding his groove at 205, he might be the new blood.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I've got Wikipedia pulled up right here, and I was I was curious about Smith's record because obviously it's 30-13. 13 is a lot of losses. So but then you go back, you look at his last 15 fights, and I think he's got 2 losses in the last 12 or 13 or 14 fights. But he
Right.
started off. This is what's interesting. He started off 5-6, so that tells you a ton, about how far he's come, right?
So that means he's 25-7 since that point.
Exactly. Thank you.
Which
I'm not the best
25-7.
math guy.
Who's that? I mean, for reference, who's 25-7? Rafael dos Anjos or someone like that.
Mm-hmm. Right. So exactly. I think his record's a little misleading. This might be surprising to you, but I am also taking Lionheart Smith in this fight. I don't think it's going to go quite as easily as you predicted with the first round knockout. I think it's going to be a little bit more of a dogfight. Like you said, both of them are going to get tired. Both of them are going to get I think punished. I think they're going to get hit. I think they're going to get rocked. I think it's going to be a bloody, fun, striking showdown. A dogfight. And I see it going into deep waters. And here's the thing. When fights go into deep waters with Lionheart, I believe that he's going to pull it out. Now, granted, a lot of those were 3-round fights where he won at the end of the third. But, I haven't really seen Volkan succeed a lot in deep waters and, going deep into fights. It's not something that I've seen. So, where I'm really going here is that, and I know that Volkan had the win against Hector Lombard in the third round, and the Andrew Sanchez win in the third round. But overall, he just hasn't been in the kind of dogfights that Anthony Smith has. And for that reason, I'm taking Anthony Lionheart Smith by third round TKO. So that's my pick on that fight. So we agree on who's going to win that one. But moving along. UFC 230 has a new main event, Fight Geek.
Yes, it does.
Last time we were on the air, it was only 2 weeks ago, by the way, but it feels like it's been 2 months.
Could we have been more wrong?
I don't think so. I mean, they were talking about Sarge Eubanks versus Valentina. That fight is canceled. They're back.
I think we talked some sense into them.
I know they're listening to us. Actually, Dana texted me today. He said he's a huge fan of the podcast. He hopes to be on soon. I told him that we'd think about it, but that obviously, there's a lot of slots to be filled, so he's on the wait list.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So 230, Derek Lewis versus DC. How wacky is that? Go.
So, okay, that there's not really a fighter that I love more than DC. Yeah, I can go ahead and say that. DC's my favorite fighter. I'm very nervous. I'm nervous for him, Fight Geek. I know you're surprised by that, but here's the thing. His right hand is not okay. He can't close a full fist. He said this on several different shows this week, and I'm concerned for him because Lewis has that power. Lewis has that crazy knockout power like a Rumble Johnson, and I could see Daniel maybe taking this guy lightly and dangerous things happening. I'm very concerned.
Yeah, it has all the makings for a disaster, honestly. DC is by far and away the better fighter, and he's assuming, in my opinion, that he can beat Derek Lewis with his wrestling alone, probably without throwing a punch. He probably will slip the first punch Derek throws, shoot on him, take him down, control him, much the way he controlled Anthony Rumble Johnson or Volkan Oezdemir, or the way, DC controls people. So I understand what DC's thinking, but even if there's a 1% chance that Derek Lewis catches you and steals your legacy, I just don't see how it's worth it. I mean, if you're going to go in there and risk your legacy, I would think that you should do it against someone like a Stipe Miocic, where at least if you lose it, you're probably going to get a guaranteed rubber match and have a chance to get that part of your legacy back. If Derek Lewis knocks out DC, that changes his GOAT conversation big time. Because Derek Lewis Derek Lewis is a fun fighter with a lot of power, but he's not a great mixed martial artist. And we saw that last fight. He was completely outclassed for about 14 minutes and 44 seconds before he was able to land something heavy, which is obviously his game plan. But talking in circles here, I don't know why DC would risk it other than maybe a huge payday, because the percentage for disaster here is high.
Right. No, I completely agree. I think to answer your question, why would he risk it? I think it's a genuine, frankly, it's a genuine disrespect for Derek Lewis's MMA skills.
For sure. And also he's a company man. So I think he probably saw what was going on with Sarge and the fan base. He's pretty in tune with the fan base, and Dana came to him with a large offer, and then Derek Lewis's newfound fame, it all kind of got thrown in a big ball and made sense to him at the deal table, but it makes no sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So
does Derek Lewis get to beat up Brock Lesnar if he wins the championship?
Oh my God! Can you imagine? Oh,
how awesome would that be? But that Brock would just wrestle him, obviously.
Here's what I think would happen. I think that if DC loses, oh my gosh! First of all, I will have a meltdown. I will be literally crying like a relative passed away for 2 weeks. I mean, I'm going to be devastated if that happens.
I don't even know what the precedent would be for something like that. Has there ever been someone as one-dimensional beat someone who's widely considered a top 3 fighter ever?
I keep going back to Matt Serra GSP. I just know those odds were so crazy.
I know, but Matt Serra was a world champion jiu-jitsu practitioner with, his skill level was elite.
Yeah, absolutely.
Derek Lewis has an elite right hand, and that's it. That's it, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, he has a big chin, too. He's a big, tough guy, no doubt.
Yeah. Okay, so do we want to make our formal UFC 230 main event picks right now, or should we hold off until...
No. We'll just touch on that. I don't think we should make those picks.
We gotta tease you guys, listeners. We gotta tease you. We gotta. It's like.
Plus, there's too much to get into for 230 right now. That card's pretty stacked, so we're gonna have to go through and give them picks on all that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We gotta tease. We gotta show a little bit of the nightgown and then put the robe back. Here's a little bit of the nightgown. Put the robe back. So,
what he said.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's move on to the final segment, listener questions. And we got a great number of listener questions. Thank you guys so much for all the questions today. They were fantastic. They really, really were, and we appreciate it. So let me start off with this one for you, Fight Geek. This is from Larry, and this is at Larmul61, LARMUL61. Larry, our good friend Larry. How do you see Jones playing out if he wins the light heavyweight title? Does he fight DC, who's in a tight retirement time frame? What happens?
Well, what happens is we got to see what happens with DC first, because if DC loses,
assuming
he's not
DC
part of
beats
that equation.
Assuming DC beats Lewis, I think that's fair.
DC wins. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that if Jones wins versus Gustafsson, we will see a 205 unification bout before DC retires. So yes, I think that Daniel Cormier will fight Jones next if they both win.
Hold on, and I'm sorry, you said a 205 unification bout? Because this is for the main title at 232.
Yeah, but it's not for the lineal title, because the lineal title is... I mean, I'm not considering whoever wins that interim as... I know it's the real belt, but if you don't win it from Daniel Cormier, it's not the real belt, is what I'm saying.
Oh, so you're saying that you predict that then, assuming DC beats Lewis, of course, that DC fights Brock in, January, February time.
No, he's not going to fight Brock. He's going to fight Derek Lewis, and then he's going to fight John Jones if John Jones wins, and if he wins.
DC has been on record this week saying he's going to fight Brock and then maybe or maybe not fight Jones.
Well, of course, that's his power play. He's kind of stringing Jones along so that he has the power in that. Of course, that's how he's going to act towards it. There's only one thing on the competitive resume of Daniel Cormier that matters, and it's not Brock Lesnar. It's John Jones. And Daniel Cormier, however he wants to play it, he knows that there's only one victory that matters to him anymore. I'm sure of it.
Right.
Whether or not he acknowledges it, whether or not he gives John the satisfaction of knowing it, I don't know. But there's only one fight he wants in his heart, in my opinion. I mean, he'll take Brock Lesnar fight, and I think he'll win that fight, and I think he'll make a lot of money, and I think for those reasons he likes that matchup. But for his competitive resume, it must be John Bones Jones.
Absolutely. So here's my biggest question about that. Why do you think that it has to take place at 205? I think that, once Jones wins that title, you've now got a double whammy for a reason to make DC Jones 3 at heavyweight. There's a new dimension. That's the new wrinkle in it. And Jones will be able to collect that second belt if he wins.
Well, in that case, let's just do a catch weight and for all the marbles.
Like a what? Like a 225 or something?
Yeah, exactly. Just come in at whatever you want to come in at, and all the belts are on the line.
Okay. All right.
Anyways, that's just some blood sport stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, because the thing is again, when it comes down to the competitive resume and the lineal belt, I keep tracing this back, is nobody's beaten John Jones. So
right.
Still to this day, Daniel Cormier's belt is a lesser version than the one John Jones used to carry until he beats John Jones and solidifies that belt as the belt John Jones took off all the legends.
I mean, me and you completely disagree here. We don't have time to get into a nuclear war about that one.
All right, so
I
answer
totally disagree. I think Jones is a drug cheat liar, and I couldn't disagree more. But we'll leave it there.
That is not the question. Answer Larry's question. We'll move on.
Yeah. Okay. How do I think it's going to play out? Okay. This is what I think. I think first of all, Jones has to get past Alexander Gustafsson. I don't want to go too much into that UFC 232 main event yet because it's premature, but I will say this. People are sleeping on Gustafsson's chances in that fight for a whole bunch of reasons. And we'll get into that in a later episode so I don't piss people. I've pissed enough people off about Jones today. But that's going to be a close one. That is no give me for Jones. If Jones loses that fight, the dynamic with the DC thing is going to change because they're going to immediately make Jones Gus 3, right? So then DC and Jones really won't fight again. So that's the first thing I would say. But I predict that Jones will win. I predict DC will beat Lewis. I think DC will fight Brock in January or February. There's simply too much money for him not to do it, to collect that easy payday. Because remember, Brock's a way bigger draw than Jones. That's a fact. And then what they're going to do is, and then I think there's going to be a Jones DC 3 as DC's final fight. And I think it will be at heavyweight. I hope it's at heavyweight, but you're right. It might not. It might not be. It might not be at heavyweight. I really want it to be.
All right, so Larry, hopefully we answered your question.
Yeah.
And I got the next one coming up right here for you. It kind of piggybacks on what we're talking about right now. It's from @ADV92, @ADVEE92. He says, we think Anthony Smith should fight for the light heavyweight title if he beats Volkan?
Ooh, that's a fun question. Okay, well, my first answer would be that it depends on the results of Jones Gus 2. If
absolutely.
Yeah. I think if Jones wins that fight, it'd be pretty hard not to feel like Anthony Smith deserves that title shot. I mean, I think he's really come this far this quick. I mean, look, he's fighting Volkan. Volkan just fought for the title at the beginning of this year at UFC 220. So it's really not, it's not a far-fetched idea to say, all right, Lionheart Smith is next in line if he beats Volkan. So yes, if Jones wins, I think he deserves the next shot. Now, he might have to wait a little bit
But there's no way he's going to get a shot over someone like Daniel Cormier if he wants it.
I know, but you're still convinced that Daniel Cormier is going to fight at 205 again. I don't think he's ever fighting at 205 again. I really don't. I think if him and Jones meet up again, it'll be at heavyweight.
Fair enough.
But, we'll see.
So, in short, I would say no. I would like it. It makes a little bit of sense, and I think I'll circle back around because I said that he may be in line next. But because of all the drama at the top between the three, Gustafsson, Jones, and Cormier, because Cormier and Gustafsson have a little heat too. So if Gustafsson were to win that fight, perhaps DC would come down to prove his 205 belt and beat Gustafsson. You know, there's a lot of scenarios that could take place between those three.
Sure. I mean, sorry, go ahead.
That's hypothetical, but obviously Gustafsson would take priority over Anthony Smith as well in certain situations.
Yeah, I mean, if Gustafsson beats Jones,
I guess losing to Jones, he would not take precedence. But for instance, if he wins and Cormier wins, I could see that being some potential matchup. Maybe, maybe not.
I just keep thinking of Cormier's Instagram post where he said, "Me and you will never fight again, Alex. You know, I used to respect you. Now I don't."
Right. Well, if he's the light heavyweight champion, that might change things.
You're right. You're right.
Coming off a victory over the guy who's your nemesis. That would if Gustafsson beats John Jones, he'll get a huge rub.
Right. Yeah. I think that's true. I just I feel like DC's personal dislike for Alex may just then fight Brock and retire, you know? I mean, he's already kind of threatening to do that. But we'll see that you're right. I mean, there's definitely a chance that if Gus beats Jones and they don't do that immediate trilogy between Jones and Gus, that DC does come down and make that fight. Okay, so moving on to the next question. This is from Matt Adams, and this is at Matt Ravejet. So at MATTRAVEJET, Matt Ravejet, Matt Adams. His question: will we see the Russian Hammer tie up a 14-14-1 record? I love that question. I admit that I knew that Artem's record was around there, but I confess I didn't know it was quite that ugly. And I think he's got a real tough opponent in Michael Johnson. So let me. Why don't you start this off? What do you think on Michael Johnson versus Artem?
Well, first of all, I'm a huge Lord Artem fan. Been a big fan.
What'd you call him? What'd you call him, Lord Artem?
Lord Artem, yeah.
I love it.
He's the man. So.
Okay, Lord Artem. I like it.
I love watching the guy fight. He brings it. He's a lunch pail fighter. He likes to throw. He's an exciting guy. I am a fan of Artem, but I don't see there's any way he beats someone like Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson is light years ahead of him in the competitions he's faced in his career. I've been wrong on Michael Johnson before. Like, I think we've touched on him in the past as he's kind of an enigma, super talented guy who never really got over the hump. And then he recently beat Andre Fili, who recently beat Artem Lobov. So MMA, Matt says there's no way Artem's going to win. So I'm going to take Michael Johnson by unanimous decision.
All right, so here's where things get funky for me. There is absolutely no reason for me to choose Artem Lobov in this fight. It makes no sense. I'm the first one to say that. It's a stupid pick to choose Artem. But guess what, Fight Geek? I'm picking it. I got Artem. Unanimous decision.
Unanimous decision?
Unanimous decision.
Have you seen his striking defense?
Yeah. But he can take a punch. He can take a punch.
Oh, like I said, I love Artem. He's tough and he likes to scrap, but I think he's going to be outclassed.
Yeah.
All right, I got the next one.
Okay.
At Oakstone MMA says, who steps in if DC or Lewis can't get cleared medically?
Oh boy, would that be a dumpster fire. Whoa.
Yes, it would. And with all the drama in the past in New York, I mean, there's been chapped lip cancellations. There have been breast plant cancellations. They're very finicky. So the things like Derek Lewis's lower back and DC's injured hand could come into play. So with that said, who would step in on short notice? I think there's an obvious answer here, but go ahead.
There's an obvious answer, huh?
It's
Now,
gotta be Stipe.
okay. Well, yes, you're right that on paper that makes all the sense in the world. He certainly deserves it. You're right. But DC is not going to agree to that. He's already said that he wouldn't have taken the fight if it wasn't
Well,
Lewis.
we're not necessarily saying DC's the one who won't have to pull out because of his hand. Either or. So, for instance, we could get Stipe versus Derek Lewis potentially if DC doesn't get cleared. The question is asking either or.
Okay, so would DC in that scenario would DC be stripped?
I don't think so. I wouldn't think so. If he's not medically cleared, they would probably just put Derek Lewis versus Stipe as the main event, which is excellent regardless.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I think that would be obviously Stipe would dominate that fight. I think that'd be one.
Yes, but it would be a great main event. I'd tune into that for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So
yeah.
devil's advocate here, then who would you pick to replace Stipe? Or not Stipe, excuse me, DC.
Well, you just I know. I think Stipe was a good choice. Didn't you just say
Okay.
if DC's yeah. I mean, the truth is I don't know how many people you could really put in there. I guess you could put Curtis Blades. He's got that fight with Ngannou. No one else.
I don't
makes
really
sense.
like that fight right now either. On a side note.
You don't like what Blades and Ngannou too?
Yeah, I don't like. I don't like when they run back fights between young fighters like that. I mean, Ngannou needs a win. I don't understand why they're going to throw him to a guy who's going to eat him up.
Yeah, I mean it's a tricky situation with Francis because he got so close to the mountaintop. I mean, Joe Rogan was saying he's I think we found the Mike Tyson of MMA.
Right.
And this was less than a year ago. Remember, so
right.
How quickly the big giants can fall.
Right.
So I don't know. I think it's a tough situation for the UFC. It's like, who do you give him?
Right.
But yeah, he's doomed against Blades. He's doomed.
So to circle back around, I think Stipe would probably be the replacement fighter if I had to pick a name. So.
Yeah, I really hope that doesn't happen. That would be. I hope that doesn't happen just for the sheer. There's enough. I think there's been enough UFC 230 chaos. I don't know if we need more. But I agree with you. I think that Stipe would be the only choice that would make much sense there. Okay, so
got any more questions?
Yeah, we got a bunch, and I'm very, very glad. Okay, so one more on my end here, and then we'll wrap it up soon. Maybe you've got one more on your end. At the last moderate one. And that's at THLASTMODERATE1, the last moderate. He said, "Who's going to get a title shot? Who's going to get a title shot first, Tony or Aaron Pico?"
I love this question.
Right? All right, you go first.
Man, it's a tough one, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Great question, by the way. Great question, last moderate. Great question.
Man, if I had to pick, I'd say Tony Ferguson will get one first. Just because I think that we're probably still a calendar year away from Aaron Pico fighting for a belt, in my opinion. And I think we're less than a calendar year away from Tony fighting for a belt. So that would be my thinking there.
Yeah, and so my answer is first and foremost, I hope that you were right. Because I think we can all agree that Tony... deserves a title. He deserved a title shot, arguably before 229. So now he really deserves one, and it's getting awkward. And
it's so awkward. I mean,
yeah,
he needs to fight for a title.
Yeah, especially against Khabib. It's such a great matchup. I mean, whatever. We need to see it. Everyone knows that. However, Fight Geek, I'm going to say this. Okay, I'm going to say that Aaron Pico fights for a title first. I think that there's just...
Wow.
Yep. I think there's too many unknowns. I don't want to get into this for very long, but, Khabib Mayweather is getting talked about. Mayweather just said it's happening. Mayweather just said it's happening about 2 hours ago. It's horrible, Fight Geek, but let's really hope that doesn't happen. And I don't think it will, by the way. But even if it doesn't happen... I really think that Conor has all the cards because of his drawing power, which he still has. He's a money-making machine. He still is. He's going to get that rematch, whether Khabib likes it or not, frankly. That's my guess. But I would prefer to see Khabib versus Tony in the next title fight.
Agreed.
All right. Do you have any more questions, or is that it?
No, I think that's going to do it for this week. So just want to shout out everybody who took the time to submit some questions and check out the pages and show us interest. We always appreciate you guys and love the interaction.
All right. And do you want to just take us home with how everyone can follow us and all that good stuff?
Yeah, you can follow us at @split_podcast. I am at the Fight Geek MMA, and he is at Phil the MMA dude. You can find us on YouTube, SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, just about every other, Google Play, all the streaming services. So check us out. It's 4 words, the Split Decision Podcast. I'm Fight Geek, and he's still the MMA dude, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, guys. Until next time, peace.